you saw the possibility of being corrupted.
Not much of a change, only the time.
What is your point?
This system caters.
Yes, it basically.
I'm Attorney Rob Sarmiento and you're watching idebate, and now we will have the most awaited rematch between the champion of last year's idebate finals, grand finals of 2006. We have St. Scholastica's Academy, and we have the finalist of last year. We have the University of St. LaSalle, and our proposition is that is economic freedom more important than economic equality? And to introduce the debaters tonight, we have for the University of St. LaSalle Bacolod, we have Mr. Jonas Cortez, and he will be joined by Ms. Cara Henares. And the third team member of University of St. LaSalle is Mr. Tomas Gerardo Araneta, and they are being coached by Mr. Jonathan Davila. And for the St. Scholastica's Academy's debating team, we have as their first speaker Ms. Victoria Dreyfus, and she will be joined by Ms. Pauline Espanola. And the third team member is Mia or Marielle Jean-Jacques. And they are coached by Ms. Romeline Carcueva. Our proposition is economic freedom more important than economic equality? Of course, some people would say that they're equally important. But our debaters tonight will be debating, or they will be trying to prove which is more important. Is it economic equality or economic freedom? When idebate returns, we will have the opening arguments of our speakers tonight. This is Attorney Rob Sarmiento, and this is the first match of idebate Challenge 2007. And we have this will be a semi-final round. And the winner of this match is very important because they are more or less assured of a place in the idebate grand finals come this November of 2007. And I could really feel the tension in this house, and we call this a real division of the house. On my right side, we have the debaters of the University of St. LaSalle and their supporters, and on the left side, we have the debaters of St. Scholastica's Academy and their supporters. And we will now start with the opening speeches. And our proposition is economic freedom more important than economic equality? And we will now start with Mr. Jonas Cortez of the University of St. LaSalle.
Good evening. The Greek words oikos, meaning home, and nomos, meaning law, form the word oikonomos, or economics. Economics, according to Lila and Dale Truitt of the University of Texas at San Antonio, in their 8-book Economics published in 2007, is the study of how resources are and can be used to satisfy wants and needs. And from this word springs our debate, economic equality versus economic freedom. There are three kinds of equality, according to the 2007 World Book Dictionary: political, social, and economic. Political equality is equality before the law. No one is exempt from it. Social equality is no discrimination due to status. Rich or poor, black or white, it does not matter. It does not make a difference for all human. Economic equality, as defined by Karl Marx, is communal ownership to all members of society. Everything from resources to production is distributed evenly, according to the wishes of the government. According to the 2007 Economic Index published by the Wall Street Journal, economic freedom is measured by the size of the government, the security of property rights, access to sound money, freedom to trade internationally, and the regulation of credit, labor, and business. Furthermore, cornerstones of economic freedom are personal rather than collective choice, freedom to enter and compete in markets, protection of property from aggression of others, and voluntary exchange coordinated with the markets rather than allocation via political process. This yearly index has been conducted for 13 years and has been confirmed that countries that increased their freedom also increased their economic growth rate from 0.35% to 2.25% and double GDP per person. Economic freedom has been shown to correlate with higher literacy, life expectancy, less corruption, and higher income of the poorest 10% of the world. People are unique. We will never be equal in everything. Economic equality is but a dream, for there will always be differences in people. Freedom and equality are interrelated but never mixed. For restricting freedom to gain equality is a hypocrisy and a system destined to fail.
You mentioned about this economic freedom index. Can you please tell us, or let's say our televiewers tonight, how did the Philippines fare in this economic index? How were we ranked in this index?
Well, not to be ashamed or anything or biased, but I'm afraid the Philippines has been ranked number 97,
97.
Out of 157 in the economic index.
Okay, thank you very much. Now let's turn to St. Scholastica's Academy, Ms. Victoria Dreyfus.
Today, we have a strange situation in which a tiny fraction of the world's population owns and controls almost everything material, where the majority of people have to struggle and split the small remainder that is left. There are more food, money, and goods today than has ever been in history, yet poverty is far from being eliminated. Although the world's population is large, it is not so large that people need to go hungry, forgo basic healthcare, basic education, and etc. As the few elite pursue their own rights to be free and further improving themselves and spending for unnecessary things, they are depriving others of their rights to have basic needs. According to Mahatma Gandhi, the world is enough for everyone's need, but not for everyone's greed. The world has enough resources for everyone. The problem arises when these resources are not distributed equitably. Karl Marx once said that economic equality means to each according to his need. We are pushing for social responsibility and moral obligation. We are pushing for the amelioration of poverty and the progress of humanity. We are pushing for the common good before individual interest, the satisfaction of need, and the equitable distribution of goods. According to the representative of Nepal during the 56th General Assembly of the Third Committee, islands of prosperity had continued to flourish in an ocean of unspeakable poverty. He said that people in developing countries were still living without access to clean drinking water, education, good health, and other basic services of life. Though economically free countries are the most progressive countries, however, it is also in these countries where the rich become richer, the poor become poorer, moral degeneration is most prevailing, less labor force is present, individual interest is more protected rather than the common good. Thus, the progress of the economy is only made available for selected individuals rather than for all. For example,
Okay, thank you very much, Victoria. Now, Jonas here mentioned about the Philippines being ranked number 97 in the index of economic freedom. Now, what can you say about that? Is that do you agree that the Philippines should be ranked in that way?
like, of course, let's face it, the Philippines is a third world country and poverty is almost present everywhere. But our stand is, through economic equality, the distribution of needs, the distribution of resources according to one's needs will satisfy the needs of the people and eventually make the people equal in terms of satisfaction of needs. And if this happens, then we will be able to alleviate poverty and we will be able to improve the situation of our country today. I mean, only a few people in the Philippines are rich and they cannot drive the whole economy. Everybody must be involved.
Okay, thank you very much. Now let's turn to the second speaker of USLS, Ms. Cara Hinares. Cara?
Good evening. Economic freedom measures the opportunity for people to engage in all levels of economic activity, from starting a business, buying groceries, and counting on sound law enforcement and courts to protect their personal liberties and private property. The fewer the obstacles to these activities, the more people can participate in the economy by working, investing, saving, and consuming. The freer the economy, the more people can use their abilities to create wealth. Adam Smith, Milton Friedman, and Frederick Hayek have stressed that freedom of exchange and market coordination provide the fuel for economic progress. William Easterly, an economist from New York University, said that economic freedom has a positive impact on growth. The research showed that poor countries that are more economically free grow faster than rich countries. With economic freedom, consumers are able to exercise their personal choice. Having no dictation in what to buy would allow a more healthy competition in the market, thus allowing consumers to choose products within their range of capability. Economic freedom is strongly related to prosperity and growth. Countries that are economically free grow faster and become more prosperous. In 2007, the World Bank report finds that economically free nations attract nearly $11,000 of investment per worker. That's 12 times more than the $847 investment per worker in unfree economies. Furthermore, the productivity of investment is 70% greater in economically free nations than in unfree nations. The top 5 nations having economic freedom, namely Hong Kong, Singapore, Australia, New Zealand, and Japan, have an average per capita income of $26,100 compared to $2,800 for nations which do not possess economic freedom. By adopting liberal economic policies, poor countries can achieve within 1 generation the kind of economic progress that it took rich countries 100 years to achieve. High growth is possible because poor countries will be catching up to rich countries rather than forging a new path. Studies both by the World Bank and International Monetary Fund confirm that countries such as China and others that have chosen to open their economies are indeed converging with the industrialized world.
Now, you are saying that there is a link or there is a connection between economic freedom and the progress of a nation, but will that not be to the sacrifice of the poor people in the community? Like when you increase economic freedom, there will also be an increase in economic inequality. Can we not say that?
Actually, that is where you are mistaken, because economic freedom actually benefits the poor. The poor will be able to use their talents and abilities so that they will be able to gain more. It isn't that they're going to stop at this particular point. Because of economic freedom, they are free to choose within their capability. And if, for example, a poor person wants to study more, he can study in order to increase his income and later on be at the level wherein the rich are in right now. I mean, the possibilities are endless, and the poor are able to pick themselves up from where they are right now and are able to progress also.
Okay, thank you very much, Karen. Now let's turn to Miss Pauline Española. Saints Co.
Our world is faced with a huge problem. The gap between the rich and the poor is wider than ever. According to the World Bank, the richest 1% of people in the world own just as much as the poorest 57%. The richest 3 people in the world, 3 people alone, earn just as much as the poorest 600 million people. According to the United Nations, 3 billion people live on less than $2 a day. 1 billion people are illiterate, and 14 million people die yearly from lack of medical care. Poverty is everywhere, even in developed countries, such as the United States and the UK. On the other hand, the rich just keep on getting richer. Forbes says that 2/3 of last year's billionaires are richer than ever. Last year, the combined wealth of the world's billionaires reached up to $900 billion. This year, their combined wealth reached $3.6 trillion. That's a whole lot of money in the hands of so few people. No one has the right to be that rich. It is a monopoly of the world's limited resources. The problem here is not scarcity, but distribution. Economic inequality is a global issue that needs to be addressed as soon as possible. Because a child dies every 3 seconds because of poverty, and the bottom half of the world's population owns less than 1% of its resources. This is not fair, especially to those who were born into poverty without any opportunity to uplift themselves. The world accepts the legitimacy of unfair, exploitive capitalism in spite of the huge inequalities it possesses. Sure, economic growth is fundamental for poverty alleviation, but we cannot alleviate poverty unless economic growth is there for both the rich and the poor, not just the elite. Through progressive taxation and income redistribution, we can level out the playing field and give better opportunities for the poor. Charity is not enough. If it were, we wouldn't have a problem now.
Now, you were saying that the world must address the problem of economic inequality as soon as possible. And I think I heard the affirmative side saying that economic equality is just but a dream.
Economic equality is a dream?
Yeah.
Of course not, because the richest people in the world have the capacity to help. The only problem is they're not helping to their full capability. With economic equality, we want the redistribution of some of that wealth to the poor people so that at least we can give them the basic needs, food, clothing, shelter. And then we can give them education so that they can have better jobs and eventually uplift themselves from poverty. We want to empower the the poor people.
Okay, thank you very much, Pauline. People of Bacolod, you have heard our debaters deliver their explosive opening arguments. When we return, we will have the interpellation round. Sarmiento and you're still watching the first semi-final match of idebate Challenge 2007. And our proposition is economic freedom more important than economic equality. And we have now come to the portion of interpellation, and each of our debaters will be given 3 minutes each to interpellate their opponents. And we will start with the first speaker of St. Scholastica's Academy, Ms. Vicky Dreyfus.
Okay. You mentioned something about economos, like being the root word of the word economics, which means the management of the household. But
No,
let me ask,
I did not say that. Oikos meaning home and nomos meaning law. That's not management of the household.
of the home.
That is
the law of the home.
That is.
Okay. How can economic freedom ensure the management of the household?
What do you mean?
How can economic freedom actually exist in the home or ensure the management of the household?
You're talking about families. This is economics we're talking about, not families.
But isn't it that just answer the question?
What is the question?
How can economic freedom ensure the management of the household?
Freedom. Aren't you freeing your family?
Isn't it?
Aren't you freeing your family? I mean, look.
Yes, you are feeding your family, but isn't it already an equitable distribution?
I wasn't
of wealth?
feeding my family.
Okay, just next question. You only mentioned about terms. What makes you really say that economic freedom is more important than economic equality?
As I stated for my speech, economic freedom has the capacity for an economy to grow. Is that possible in economic equality? I mean, look at what's happening now. Communism has fell. Communism has fell already.
We are not, however, pushing for communism. Okay, you only mentioned about
But communism comes from the
Like-
Marxist socialist ideology.
Okay, okay.
Isn't that also economic freedom? I mean, economic equality.
I'm the one asking the question.
I'm trying to answer your question, but you
Okay,
don't seem to be-
next question. In what way can economic freedom actually help the poor?
Help the poor?
Yes.
Thank you, my dear opponent. That's a very good question. First of all, economic freedom, people have choices, people have opportunities, people have capacity, people have different
the poor use their
hopes,
freedom if they have
dreams.
no capital?
The poor have dreams. The poor have dreams of being rich. I have dreams of being rich. In economic freedom, the poor are able to work for their initiative,
Okay, I already
to work
get
for
you.
their income.
How can the poor even dream of becoming rich if they don't have enough
The
resources
poor
to
dream
start
of
with?
becoming rich, of course. Who doesn't dream
Well, my
of becoming
point
rich?
is, how can
you
they
need income.
How can they acquire income?
Exactly my point. You're just merely repeating. You're just making me
They
repeat
don't
what I'm
have
saying.
capital in the first place.
Then there is such thing as sagog vendors. There is such thing as fishbowl vendors. They don't need big capital. It's not true that they don't have capital. Everyone has capital. That's why it's a good thing for it to be in economic freedom. It's a benefit. You have freedom to gain capital. You have freedom to get.
But
your
how
capital.
can you gain capital or even start the business if you don't have enough resources to start with?
You can work. You can work. First of all, there's
Yes,
such
and
thing as
isn't
food.
it in working you're given a wage or like a salary?
Of course.
So that is basically the principle of economic equality, to give what is due to other
Are you?
people.
If that's a basic principle of economic equality, are you saying that in economic freedom there are no wages?
But simply the giving,
Are there wages in economic freedom?
of course there are, but
Then
the
what are
giving
you
of
saying?
wages
Then what are you
is
saying it's a
already
basic
part of economic equality. You're giving what is due to other people.
Okay, now let's turn the floor now. Jonas, you may now ask the questions.
Do you think economic equality is beneficial for us?
Of course, I think it is.
Is it beneficial for all men to have the same goods,
You don't
medicines,
understand
food
our
as provided by the state? Listen to the question first. Is it beneficial for all men to have the same goods, medicine, food as provided by the state? Yes or no?
Okay, you mentioned about the same. Our point is that
Equality
does not literally.
What does equality mean to you? I'm just
Equality-
merely asking you a question. You're straying from far from the topic.
Yeah, that's
Yes or
why
no?
I'm explaining
Yes
to
or
you
no?
what equality means.
You cannot explain because I'm the one supposed to ask.
Okay.
So,
You're asking. I'm
is it
answering your
beneficial
question.
for all men or women to have the same goods, medicine, food as provided by the state? Yes or no?
Yes.
Then would you call it beneficial if one loses his or her freedom of choice in view of the government economic policy of
Let
equality?
me point out that there is no economic system in its pure form. For example, the Philippines. Take the Philippines as an example. It's a state capitalist. Like, you're saying that we are pushing for communism. Is that what you mean?
I did not say that. What I'm merely asking you is it beneficial for someone to
course,
lose his
because-
freedom? It's beneficial for someone to lose his freedom of choice? I do not think so. You're exercising your freedom of choice right now. Is that beneficial to you if you don't have freedom of choice in a debate or
Yes,
in an economy?
it is beneficial.
It is
but
beneficial.
how can you exercise?
How can you say that?
exercise your
You're
freedom if your
contradicting
needs are not
yourself.
even met?
Do we have equal needs?
What do you mean by equal
Do we have
needs?
equal needs?
What do you mean?
Equal needs. Needs.
Equal in the sense
Equal
that
needs. Equal needs.
You
I'm
need
just
food,
very
clothing,
equal as a
shelter.
term.
Yes, you need
Equal as a
food,
term.
clothing, food, shelter.
If we have equal needs, then how come I don't wear girl clothes?
I guess it's not actually.
Then are you aware that it is the Marxist socialist ideology that advocates economic equality?
Like, I am aware of that fact.
Okay, thank
but
you.
Then,
Do you believe then that given the trend of globalization, equitability and not equality is what we need?
like, that's what we are trying to point here. Equality in
If
the
that
sense
is what you're
through
trying to
the
point
equitable
out,
distribution of wealth.
then meaning you're not for economic equality. What are you for?
Let me give you an example, okay? A single man and a man with 3 kids and his wife. Okay, you give the single man only like, for example, 1 peso. And then you give the man with 3 children and his wife, since there are like 5 in the family, you give them 5 pesos because if you take it into an individual context, then
Exactly my point, my dear opponent. That's why economic equality cannot exist because look.
Then why are we debating?
It cannot exist because look. First of all,
Inequality
first
does
of
not
all,
exist,
that
then why are we debating?
I'm sorry. First of all, the economic. What you're telling is economic freedom to each
no,
his
it's
own.
not economic freedom. It's
Of
economic
course,
equality.
how can it be equal? It's 1 peso and 5 pesos. That's not equal.
Yeah,
1
you
is not
let
equal
me
to
finish
5.
first because you did not let me finish. Okay, but okay, they need 1 peso. Okay, but in the end, their needs get satisfied. Are then they equal?
Are you aware of the emergence of free market economies bolstering one's nation per capita?
Okay, you can go back to that later during the free debate round. In the meantime, let's have Ms. Pauline Española.
Okay. How can economic freedom benefit the poor majority if they don't even have basic needs like food, clothing, shelter, let alone capital to start a business? 1 child dies every 3 seconds because of poverty.
Can you repeat the question? I think it was too long.
My question is, how can economic freedom benefit the poor majority if they don't even have needs like food, clothing, and shelter, let alone capital?
How can it benefit the poor people?
Yes,
of
how
course
can
it benefits the poor people. Weren't you listening to our speech and to my answer to Attorney Ralph a while ago? It benefits the poor people. It especially benefits the poor. For the fact alone that in economic freedom, the poor are able to use... Everyone has their own aspirations, dreams, and everything,
No,
right?
what I'm saying is, they don't even have food, clothing, and shelter. How can they have capital to start a business
How sure
and
are
achieve
you
their
that
dreams?
they don't have food,
There
clothing,
are
and shelter?
statistics. 3 billion
Where did
people-
you get these statistics?
The UN, research, the World Bank.
What tools did they use?
Well, you know, they're the UN. You don't trust the UN. You don't trust the World Bank.
I didn't say that I didn't trust the UN or
So
the
why
World
are
Bank.
you-
Why
why
are
are
you
you
implying that
questioning my
I
research?
don't trust the UN and the World Bank?
You're asking me
I'm
what
merely
methods they
asking you.
use.
I'm merely asking you. Is asking wrong?
You're asking me what methods they use to do research.
No, I'm just asking to verify it.
Okay,
Pauline,
well-
just proceed to your next
to
question.
continue. Is one's personal fortune enough to justify the fact that people are dying? I mean, a child dies every 3 seconds out of poverty. Yes or no?
The person, the what?
Is your personal fortune, I mean not your personal, but is one person's personal fortune enough to justify the fact that
Different
people are
people
dying
have-
in the streets and they are not helping?
Different people have personal fortunes. I mean, you have your own fortune. I have my own fortune. She has his own fortune. There are different kinds of fortune.
Okay, so if you have $56 billion and 3 billion people die because they don't have enough of their food, clothing, and shelter, is that justice? Where is the justice in that? Where is the social responsibility?
What social responsibility are you
Social
talking about?
responsibility. You have an
Whose
obligation.
responsibility is this? Is it
Our
the
obligation
responsibility
as
of the rich?
people.
You're talking about morality.
Exactly. As human beings,
Yes,
we have to
it's
help
about
those who
morality.
don't
We're
have
talking
enough.
about economics.
Well, there has to be a moral economic system. You can't just
Do you
gain
know what
more
the
and
moral
more.
economic system is?
Of course, a moral economic system. You have social responsibility. You give to those
Is
who
there
don't
one
have
moral
enough.
economic system?
Of course.
So what does it say?
So if you don't have a moral economic system,
Are you
then-
implying that I don't have a moral economic
well,
system?
with economic freedom, you're allowing people to earn as much as they want without limit, while other people are dying in the streets because they don't have the capacity to earn the same. They don't have equal opportunities.
It's because of their capability. The poor people are actually capable of working. I mean, they're capable of bringing themselves up. They're capable of putting food on their table if they want to. It's not because it's their choice that they're there. I mean, you could look for work. Any person could look for work.
No, unemployment
sure?
rates are so high. There aren't enough jobs in the country to sustain everyone's need for work. Plus, what happens?
They could sell like what my partner said a while ago, they could sell fish balls and other stuff.
Okay, now let's turn the floor again. Cara Henares, you may now ask Pauline.
Do you agree that in order for man to be happy, he should exercise his freedom?
with a limit. Exercise freedom with a limit because you don't
Do
need...
you believe that this freedom includes the freedom to choose?
Yes, but with a limit as well.
Do you believe that a man should exercise his freedom as long as he does not violate any rule?
Yes, but when
Okay,
you
thank you, my
exercise-
dear opponent. Are you aware that in economic equality, it is the government who decides what the people should have?
No.
Then who decides?
The people decides what the people
Then
should have
if the
because
people decide what they should have, then
the government
I
is for
decide.
the people.
So basically, what you're saying is the government is the one. Okay, thank you. Really? So did they consult the people what their dreams are?
Of course. I mean, because
they
everyone
did?
needs food,
The
clothing,
government
and shelter.
consulted your dreams?
Well, everyone wants
Wow!
food,
Out
clothing,
of
and
the
shelter.
100 billions of people in the world, they consulted every person of their dreams.
You know what? I'm sure
Okay.
a lot of people, a lot of
Okay,
hungry
thank
people
you.
starving
If someone
want
decides what you
food.
should have and you were not consulted, are you exercising your freedom?
Can you please repeat your question?
If someone decides what you should have and you were not consulted, are you exercising your freedom?
Well, no, but if I'm starving,
Okay,
then
thank
I
you.
want food.
Do you want to exercise your freedom of choice, my dear friend?
Yes, but with a
Okay,
limit.
thank you. Which place would you like to shop for perfume, for example? The US, Philippines, Paris, Belgium?
I don't care, you know.
Okay, just choose any.
Well, I guess Philippines promote
Okay, thank
our
you.
local products.
Thank you, my dear opponent. By answering my question, you have just exercised your right to choose, which is inherent in economically free nations like Hong Kong, the US, and the Philippines. By your answer alone, I have found out that you're in favor of free choice, which only economic freedom can provide, and it is something that is not present in economic equality.
No, economic equality,
Okay,
you still have
next
freedom
question.
to choose.
Isn't it that in economic equality, the good of the public is superior to the good of an individual?
Can you repeat the question?
Isn't it that in economic equality, the good of the public is superior to the good of an individual?
Of course.
Is the majority always favored in economic equality?
Yes.
So the individual cannot assert his intention once the majority has
No, we're not
decided.
saying that.
Okay. And this individual is forced to follow against his will, isn't it?
No.
How can you say that?
Because if you have too much of one resource, then you're just
But you're
obliged to give.
You're promoting
I mean,
equality.
exactly.
You're promoting equality. How can you say that one person has more?
Well, look at Bill Gates. He has so much money.
But
He
you're
has 56
promoting-
billion, and
but
it's
the thing
his
is,
choice.
excuse
It's
me.
his freedom of choice to give to people.
But
he's not.
You're promoting equality. How
Exactly.
can
He's-
you talk about one person having more than the other? You should
Exactly.
be for
He's giving his
equality.
wealth to the people, so
So
that
he's
there is
giving his wealth to the
redistribution of
people.
wealth.
Okay. So aren't you aware that in the Cultural Revolution in China, Mao Zedong was the leader here, and millions were pulled out to work menial jobs such as digging ditches, and many died
That's
and were
communism.
buried
We're not for
on the same
communism.
spot.
We're not for communism.
But isn't it the same?
No, it's not the same because when
It's
you have
equality.
socialism, you're taking away people's
Okay.
right to private property. We're still giving them the right to private property and to own businesses, but with a limit to what they can earn. We're going to give the rich bigger taxes. And we're going to give a limit
aren't
to the
you
number of
saying
lands
that-
they can possess.
But you're saying everything's equal, right?
No.
Okay, that ends the interpellation round. I've never seen a debate so hot like this. This must be a prelude to the idebate grand finals of 2007. When we return, we will have the free debate round. You're still watching idebate, and we still have University of St. Casal versus St. Scholastica's Academy with the proposition, is economic freedom more important than economic equality? And for the free debate round, this will be a free-flowing discussion, but I tell you people of Bacolod, I've never seen so much debating and argumentation talent in high school students, and you see that only here in idebate. And to start with the free debate round, I would like to start with a question. Can you please tell me at least 3 economic, or let's say indicators of economic freedom? When do we say that a nation has economic freedom? Would you like to answer that?
Economic freedom. Okay.
My partner.
Economic freedom. The nation has economic freedom. There are 10 factors that determine economic freedom. One would be fiscal freedom, business freedom, and freedom from corruption. You asked for 3, I'll give you 3.
Okay, now for St. Scholastica's Academy, can you please give me at least 3 indicators of economic equality?
Economic equality occurs when there is satisfaction of the needs of all of the people, like, for example, food, clothing, and shelter. No one should die just because of poverty. And then those who are rich, they should have the obligation to help those who cannot afford.
So are we saying that these factors cannot coexist?
Economic freedom and economic equality are two different things. So if those are the factors which you have stated are for economic equality, then I don't think that that can exist in economic freedom.
Reaction?
Like what I said earlier, there is no economic system that can exist in its own form. I mean,
Of course, there's no economic system that can exist in its own form.
Okay, let me
That's why
just-
there's government. That's why there's government. A government is there to make the laws, to regulate the laws, and to
people
judge
are
the
just
people.
free, then it's absolutely like freedom.
That is
There
not
are-
freedom. That is licentiousness, meaning that is freedom to do what you want. That is not freedom.
Economic freedom is defined as freedom within the law, so there is a law.
Yes. And that law, who makes that law? The government. We're not saying that economic freedom means no government at all. Look at the examples right now. Not China. USA, the Philippines. There's still a government. Even though if we are in economic freedom, there is still the government. No one can exist without a government. It's what the state comprises.
Of course there's a government. What we're saying is the government should redistribute the wealth so that the rich people can help the poor people.
Yeah, let me just make it clear that what we mean by economic equality is the equitable distribution of resources.
You're
When
using
you say
the word equitable. You're not
Wait.
using the word equality.
Yes, but
What
let
are
me
you talking
explain how
about?
it happens.
You're supposed to be for economic
For
equality,
example,
not
there's this
equitability.
single man with
That sounds like a bank. We say
Equality is the satisfaction of needs.
If you take it into an
So that means
Satisfaction of
if it's a
needs.
satisfaction of needs, different people have different needs.
That is
But
why
there's food,
so
clothing,
there
and
is
shelter. Those are the
more,
three
yeah.
basic needs
Are
that
you saying
everyone
that,
needs.
are you saying that in an economic freedom, people cannot be given their basic needs?
They
Well, a lot of
given
people in the world
basic
don't
needs.
have their basic
They are given their basic needs.
No, they're not.
How is
Okay,
that
okay,
a question?
One at a time, please. One at a time. Victoria.
They're not given their basic needs.
Victoria.
How can they be given their basic needs?
You're asking how? That is a great question. Number one,
Yes.
people work. Number two, people can go to school. Number three, people can go into business. Number four, people are free. That all of these exist in economic freedom. If you're given,
Isn't
if
it
you
that
give
they
them economic,
need resources?
of course, but
There are
that's just-
resources all around us, and
Acquire
we can acquire.
They can acquire resources through equitable distribution.
No, if you're poor to begin with, resources all around us. Why can we not get? How can
I
we
have a
be free
question.
resources?
Pauline.
If you're poor to begin with, where do you get capital? Where do you get resources to start your
That is
business
why
and
you
uplift
work.
yourself?
I mean,
no,
you
but
work.
there are
If
high
you work in order
unemployment
to
rates
get capital.
everywhere.
You're
You know,
mistaken.
if you're saying
mistaken.
that you don't have any capital and every thing, so what? The government just feeds you money?
No, they don't.
That's
feed
what
you.
you're
We're
saying.
not
I mean,
making the poor
that's
dependent.
why.
You're-
That's why they have to work. They have to work according to their ability to gain
But not
what they
everyone can
need.
work
But you're
because
mistaken
not.
an aspect.
Why can they not
They
work?
work, right?
Because
Because,
they're-
they want to earn. And if they earn, it's already like economic equality. You give what is due to people. They worked hard to get
Well, you're
for
saying
it.
you're
There
supposed to
aren't
distribute.
enough jobs.
You're saying you're supposed to distribute the natural resources, right?
A form of economic equality.
You are saying that you are supposed to distribute natural resources, right?
Yes.
Is wealth a natural resource?
Yes.
Yes.
Really?
It's national.
Money,
You said
money are
national.
Where do you
trees.
get?
Money
said
is
national.
taken from
Where do you
trees.
get?
No, you
Money
said
is a tree.
national.
Natural resources, wealth is a natural resource.
Okay, now, you are talking about economic freedom and they're talking about economic equality. Now, are you talking about economic freedom as an end in itself, or are you talking about economic freedom as a means to something? And the same question goes to the same Scholastic Academy. When you talk about economic equality, are you saying that this is an end in itself, or is this a means to something else?
It's a means to something else.
So what are we trying to achieve with economic equality?
We're trying to alleviate the poverty because majority of the people in the world are poor and they don't have enough to
So
sustain-
what basically is the goal that we are trying to achieve?
We are
in this?
trying to satisfy the basic needs, most especially the physiological needs. Like for example, we are debating about economic freedom, we are debating about economic equality, but those people watching there, how could they understand what we are talking about if they cannot even have food to eat, water to drink? And according to Abraham Maslow, in his hierarchy of needs, the physiological needs must be satisfied first. In order that people would move to a higher degree of needs, in order to satisfy.
Okay, now.
I find
actualize
there is a point
Okay,
I'd like
Lasal.
to. There's a point I'd like to say.
No,
Don't-
Jonas first, can you please answer my question?
Economic means economic equality as an.
Is it an
economic
end in
freedom as an
itself,
end?
or
There is such thing as economic growth, and this only appears. This is only possible through economic freedom. Economic freedom does not end. There is such, as I said, there is such thing as growth. Meaning, economic freedom is a way for economy to grow, and from this growth would be the higher income, higher gross domestic product
Okay,
per
let me
person.
ask you about the GDP
I'm not
and
yet
GNP.
finished.
Can I-
I'm not yet finished.
Okay.
Economic freedom, aside from growth, and besides, did you listen to my speech earlier? It contributes to higher literacy, meaning better.
Then why are so many people in
Can I
the
ask a
world
question?
poor?
Okay, sure.
Okay. You said that if people don't have food to eat, they cannot understand what they're talking about. So are we
Exactly.
saying that, are you saying that they're illiterate if they don't have food? If you can't eat, you're illiterate. Is that what you're saying? If they don't have water, they're illiterate. If they don't have clothes, they're illiterate.
That's not what we're saying.
No,
what
but
we're
she
saying
said,
is,
wait, excuse me. But your partner said a while ago that if they don't have food to eat, if they don't have these basic needs, they cannot understand anything. So basically, you're saying that they're illiterate if they don't have
Pauline
these
is-
basic
Pauline,
needs.
Pauline.
Let us
Answer
answer
the
the
question.
question. What we mean is, if you don't have your basic needs like food, clothing, and shelter, how can you concentrate on things of the mind? How can you concentrate on what other people are saying to you if you don't even have what you need to survive? I mean, education comes after food, clothing, and shelter.
And like, I would like to ask the question about the GDP and GNP of countries. I mean, they determine how much a country spends, right?
No, it determines how much people earn, not how much
Okay,
countries,
earn or
It's
spend.
earned. No,
Okay.
it's
It
earned.
depends
It's
on
earned.
earning
It's
something.
earned. It's different.
Okay, earn.
Fine. Okay, but the question
Fine.
is, who earns and who spends? In the US, there are 45 million people living in poverty. And there's this incident, the Oklahoma flood, the New Jersey flood. The world was so shocked that US was not ready for that kind of incident to happen. I mean, they spent billions of dollars on the war in Iraq. How come they cannot help their people?
So what is your point?
Yeah.
You seem to be talking about natural calamities. You seem to be
calamities.
talking about war. This is very
But
far.
isn't it that in order to
War is
help these
expensive.
people, you have to like distribute the things that they need in order for them to survive? this
Natural
kind of
calamities are not part of this topic. That is some other factor in which it's not their fault that they're
Exactly.
it's not their fault. It's fine because it was natural calamities.
Actually,
No, but
it's
what we're
also
talking
their
about
fault.
is-
What kind of person is prepared for natural calamity? I mean, are you saying that
They weren't
what's
prepared to
gonna
give
happen?
relief to
Yeah.
the victims,
Yeah.
even
But
though
you're
they're
saying
such
they
a
were
rich
not prepared.
country.
They were
They were
not
not able
prepared.
to give relief to their
Are you
poor
sure
people.
that the UN,
They weren't
the
weren't giving?
the place, the organization in which you took your definition from is willing to help people?
We're not just talking about the UN. We're
But
talking
what
about
is-
governments in
what you're
every
saying-
single country.
Every government helps their nation if there's a natural
Yeah, but
calamity.
not enough.
That's the
They don't
purpose of
help
a government.
enough.
The government helps.
So your problem is with
Okay.
the government, not with economic freedom. Your problem
Yeah,
is
your
with the
problem-
No,
government.
our problem
With the
is with
government.
economic freedom because you're allowing few people to own most of the world's
Did you know
resources.
that governments are corruption? Are you aware of that?
Yes, of course. Every system has corruption.
And exactly. Then where does corruption come from? It comes from the person, not from the system.
Economic freedom. It's
Exactly.
not
So
economic
what's
freedom.
your
So you're
point?
talking about people's morality. That is not our topic. You're talking about corruption in the government.
But
You're talking about
morality,
people's morality.
politics, and
exercising
economy are
economic
different.
equality. I mean, you give people what is due to
So
them, what they
then
need.
morality